Welcome everyone to this session of the Independent Consultants Network, where we're going to be doing a short we've got a couple of talks and a discussion on setting up your own business. This is something that both of the speakers have had a somewhat different experience of, because I think they both have set up their companies set up their businesses for different reasons. So I think probably, since we've started a little bit late due to some of the inevitable IT issues, I think perhaps we could just start. Martin, would you like to start with your talk? So
Sure, happy to. Absolutely. Yeah. Let me. I'll just share my screen, and that's good. Hopefully, can you see that? Is that going through?
not at the moment, I can't.
Okay. Hold on. There we go. No, I haven't pressed the share button. That should be it. Is that right? Can you see that now?
I can
Yep.
see that. I can see that now. Yeah.
Excellent. That's brilliant. Perfect. So I'll just run it in full slideshow mode, and that's great. Welcome everyone. Thanks, John, for the intro. So I'm Martin Parr. I'm going to talk about the setting up guided system solutions and some of the things that I would recommend thinking about in setting up a company. So really delighted to join you this afternoon. By way of a quick background, so my original sort of training is in electrical engineering, and I have a Royal Academy of Engineering chair. I've worked quite a lot with the UK government, provided advice to a whole range of different programs, some of them really, really big, some of them relatively small, and I've worked with a myriad of different organisations, both from the time when I was in central government as a consultant through to the time where I have been sort of working under my own organisation. So at the beginning, I think there's a set of decisions that you need to make at the beginning when you set up an organisation, and I'm really going right back to sort of first principles. The reason that I wanted to do what I do is because I wanted the freedom of being able to do what I enjoy. I wanted a bit less noise in the way of all the baggage of working with central government, and also I really wanted to have the ability to go off and travel and enjoy, the things that I enjoy in life. So my reasons for setting up the company are not purely commercial. It was also about lifestyle and just being able to do things in a slightly easier way. So the first decisions to make are just literally what trading entity do you want. That's probably the easiest decision you'll make. Limited company, limited liability partnership, sole trader, etc. And the benefit of having a company is that it's a separate legal entity, and the downside is, of course, it costs quite a bit more in accountancy fees to do it, and you've got then a bit more baggage in terms of administration of the company. But for me, I went for a company just because that seemed to me the most useful. It also means that you can share the company with others. So I have a number of associates, and some of my associates have become partners, and so we're able to split then the ownership of the company much more easily than if it was a sole trader. Is everyone out there familiar with IR35? Just quick show of hands. Definitely, John is. Anyone else? Yeah, I've got a few. Not necessarily, okay, not necessarily everybody at the moment. Just a potted history of IR35. Essentially, it's a set of tax rules that were set up by the government to differentiate those who are truly running a company from those who are more sitting in a sort of doing a job that you previously would have done on someone's payroll, but doing it as under the umbrella of a company. And so it comes in the form of a set of tests, like, are you taking commercial risk, who sets the hours, who sets where you work, etc. And there is a form online. So for those of you who are not familiar with it, really get to know IR35. It's the biggest pain ever as a consultant, and it comes to you in two forms. So one form is when you're contracted out to do something, then it's really good to check whether this falls within IR35 or it doesn't, because if it's within IR35, then you're going to be paid net. So you will have the tax deducted from you at source, and you won't be able to deduct any of your operating costs like premises, travel, IT equipment, and all the other things from that gross cost. You're to be deducting it net. So the benefit of running a company is virtually zilch if you're going to work entirely within IR35. And the other where it comes to bite you is if you are contracting people in be absolutely sure about whether you're doing it inside or outside of IR35, because if you make the wrong decision and the Inland Revenue come for you later on, they can demand all the tax that you haven't paid if you've made the wrong decision. So it's really, really important to get it right. The next level down, professional indemnity, public liability insurance, you'll be needing them to a certain level. It very much depends on what kind of work you do as to what level of insurance you need. And then ultimately you'll need some premises or a business address at least, just as a place to send your mail and send the tax reports, etc. You can get a virtual office for virtually nothing these days in London, so have a look out for those. You might need to be VAT registered, so for those who are thinking of taking on perhaps substantial portfolios of work, you may need to be VAT registered from the beginning. The threshold's 85,000, so if you think you're going to cross that in the near future, you definitely would need to do that. You may well want to have a website. You may want to have a company LinkedIn account. They're all very doable, very straightforward. There's no cost to any of those as such, but once you're VAT registered, there's kind of no going back. So everything that comes in has 20% taken off it, and you then pay that directly to the government. So again, if you're sort of if you're initially building up a company and you want to stay below that threshold, you can perfectly legally do that up to 85,000. Plan with the future in mind. Definitely, whatever structure, whatever approach you use, whatever way of working you use, think about whatever had 4 times the income, whatever had a quarter of the income. The chances are things won't go quite to plan. So it's worth making sure your structure works for plus and minus income. Next part of this, I would talk about marketing. So essentially, I wouldn't start running a company until I've got a first group of customers. That's exactly what I did. I had my first set of customers at the beginning. It's a little difficult. It's a chicken and egg problem, that it's a bit difficult to market what you haven't got. And until you've set up the website and everything else, it's a bit difficult to look like a credible business. But there are those who will hire you. When in my case with the university email address and a bit of marketing blurb around what I could do. So it is possible to start with very little, and then look at the markets you're targeting. What do they expect to come with? And by that I mean what software, what experience, what skills, what training, what do you need to enter that market? Also think about who you can partner with, because partnering is massively important in this sort of world where big business tends to dominate. And how will you maintain a cash flow? So it's relatively straightforward to find a group of people who will hire you at the beginning. What's a bit more difficult is delivering that year on year, and then also building up that sort of clientele in the background to make sure you've got a plan for when your biggest customer doesn't need you anymore, or your biggest customer isn't in business anymore. What do you do to sort of maintain that cash flow as you go forward? Then we get to actual delivery of consultancy. Do you work alone? And what sort of team will you have if you're not working alone? And can you rely on the quality of their work? One of the biggest challenges of any organization as they grow is to deliver a broad portfolio of work, but also to maintain the quality of that. It's relatively easy to get people from all over to fill gaps, but you don't know how well they deliver things. So having that cohort of people that you can work with, the people who know you well, work with you well, is really important. And what thresholds are there? So for some people, I'll agree thresholds. I'll do you a minimum of a day a month or a day a week or whatever it happens to be. For others, it's more on an ad hoc basis, but it's good to have that sort of those discussions kind of out in at the beginning. And then the dreaded administration. I know John will probably sort of tell me that he's doing it all himself. I would say that we didn't talk about the VAT return. You were doing the VAT return yourself at one time, anyway. But I would say hire an accountant right at the beginning. Before you've even created the company, make sure that the company is set up in the way that you need it to be. There are so many pitfalls these days. There are so many things that you can find, years down the track. Oh, if only we'd done whatever it was. It's really good to have that. If you're going to be VAT registered, hire a bookkeeper as well, because it's amazing how quickly those VAT returns come round. You have them, if you're fairly small, every quarter. If you're bigger, every month. And those come up at you before you've known about it, and you have to have essentially all the accounting process has to be in place before that. So it's good to have at least someone to remind you and someone to come and help do things, because if you're working till midnight to deliver a work program, the last thing you want is at 1 a.m. to realise, oh, you know what, there's still some lovely, delightful receipts to be categorised. I would also say have payroll services if you're employing staff, because again, it's a minefield that if you don't get it right, then you can really struggle. it's not bad to have some sources of legal advice, friends, anyone. ChatGPT is not bad, actually. You know, if you're really stuck, it's amazing what you can get out of ChatGPT. But I wouldn't entirely rely on it. HR advice is not bad as well. Again, there's a bit of a minefield in terms of when you employ somebody, thinking about pension contributions, thinking about making sure that you tick all the boxes that need to be ticked. Because again, if you don't get something right, it can be very costly to sort it out later on. And then finally, have a tax advisor. A tax advisor is a very different person from an accountant. An accountant is great at finding where you put the sort of various elements of money to make sure you've paid the right amount of tax. A tax advisor looks way into the future. And you know, I had a very nice sort of kind of East London Barrow boy type tax advisor, and he would always look at things and say, "Oh, God, you're going to be paying for fortune if you don't do that. You get this in, you get that letter in today." You know, and he's sort of going, "Oh, really? That much? Yeah, that much." So tax advisors are brilliant. They look to the future. They look to make sure that you are absolutely legal as you go through, and that you are you know, paying a sensible amount of tax, not a default amount of tax, which you know you can pay if you're not careful. License to practice, entry requirements. So the cheapest and most straightforward way to operate as a independent consultant is to work for a small to medium-sized company. It's got very low baggage essentially to do that, because generally they won't need you to be certified in very many sort of organisations. They won't need you to have a huge amount of contractual baggage to carry, and they might, if you're working for one or two, you might end up inside IR35, but it's a small price to pay for essentially not having all of the rest of the stuff. As soon as you start to grow and you want to take on, for example, contracts directly with the UK government, that's when all the admin stuff starts to hit you. So you will probably, I mean, you will almost certainly need Cyber Essentials. That's going to be the first thing. Audit of every system that you've got, check of every last piece of software that you're using on an annual basis. It's not that expensive, it's about £400 to do it, but there's the nose of doing it, there's the cost to the IT consultant to help you with it, and then there's the batting and the toing and froing of actually just getting the wretched thing signed off every year. So that's the first bit of contracting laws. You'll probably need to be on a contracting framework if you want to win work that's anything other than the publicly available work, which is sort of, most of it goes through frameworks these days. So being on a framework is, again, not a cheap thing. It's not straightforward. You'll need more professional indemnity insurance than you can ever imagine to contract for, to even to bid for a lot of these things. You might well need accreditation. You might well need audited accounts, particularly if you're doing things that are in excess of 100,000 bids. And again, if you're doing a multi-year program, you might be, as you start out, thinking, "Oh, 100,000, that's a lot of money." But if it's a multi-year, if it's 3, 4, 5 years, you know, you can very easily be bidding for things which are, you know, quite substantial sums of money. And again, the baggage that comes with those is quite significant. So I would say start with a small to medium-sized private sector client at the beginning, which is exactly what I did. And if you're going to work your way into working with government, do so, you know, very gradually, and you know, do it not in a big, a great rush. Bear in mind that there's a whole lot that will come up to catch you if you're not careful. Some ideas. So just really final slide from me of things that I would say. If you can start with some early clients who share your vision of success, that is a really good place to start, because it's relatively easy to make a difference to a client who's got your view of the world. It's great then to grow your network through conferences, podcasts, webinars, all sorts of places to find, again, similar people who share your view of the world. And that's relatively easy. It's more difficult to make a difference with a client who's got somewhat of a sort of different, you know, view on things. On every bid, and I mean every bid, put your assumptions. Is it inside or outside IR35? Does it include VAT or is it ex-VAT? And when will it be delivered? And most importantly, if it's going to be delivered by that point, when does the contract have to be signed for it to be delivered at that point? Because the number of times that you end up with you know, falling out with people over things like this, where you know, it's just not clear, and it's so much easier just to make it clear at the beginning. And when I say a bid, I mean, you know, when somebody messages you at some ungodly hour of the night and says, could you just do this? And you write back and say, yeah, happy to do it for say 2K or something. You might think that that's the end of it, but trust me, once the VAT's been taken off your 2K, and once they've said, oh, by the way, it's inside IR35, you've just lost an enormous amount of that 2K that you thought it was going to be a quick thing for not that much work, but suddenly you've pretty much half that 2K if it's inside IR35 and that you're paying the VAT. And particularly then if on top of all that they say, oh, you said it would be done by Christmas, they haven't signed the contract till, I don't know, 1st of December or something, again, it makes a massive difference to what you're doing. So I would always be absolutely clear on every single communication about my assumptions in this. And what I do, particularly when I work with those organisations who don't understand IR35 very well, is I say, here's the IR35 decision that I've come up with. If yours differs, let me know, but let me know before we start work. So yeah, that is in a nutshell my sort of very quick canter through on what I've learned in what I would say are the most important things in setting up guided systems. If you want to know more, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I also host a podcast called Evolving Enterprises. So there's a whole lot more on that. So feel free to scan the QR codes if you want to have a look at that as well.
Excellent, thank you, Martin.
That's right.
Can we, if you could maybe surrender the screen?
Surrender the screen. Just one tick. Now, how do I stop sharing? There we go. I've got it. Got the stop share button.
Excellent.
Zoom and Teams are always different. There we go. That's it. Perfect.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Now we've got somebody. Carrie Liu is going to come on next, who's got a very different experience, I think, of setting up a company. Before then, is there anybody who've got anything in the way of urgent questions or particular points of clarification that they'd like to ask Martin, because he's obviously given a bit of a canter through there of the different things that you have to do, and I know some of them I would echo from having run my own for just little old me, but for 25 years, and the sort of keeping going is actually much more, requires a lot more thinking about it than you'd imagine when you get started. Okay, are there any questions? We don't have anything in the chat, or anybody who wants to put their hand up? If not, no, I think okay. I think
Hang on. Sorry.
okay, so Tim Gent is interested in the trade-off between being a sole trader against being a limited company. So Martin, do you want to give him a little bit of a brief on how that works and why
Sure. Yeah, very happy to. So, I mean, the great thing about being a sole trader is that you can just start up. I mean, you can just start like today, and you can trade, and you theoretically you'll need to set up a business bank account, because if you put too many transactions through your personal one, then people will complain. And also when somebody pays you as a corporate, if you're using your personal bank account, then they've got to select the personal account, which is obvious that you're using your personal bank account. But that aside, you can start today. You can set up a business account for your sole trader in no time. You can the accountancy cost is relatively minimal for a sole trader, but there are a few sort of downsides to it. So you're within a company, the liability is only for what's within the company. So if you've got a company that's, I don't know, Fred Blogs Limited, and anything goes wrong, that company, if it's got no assets in it, the liability is not much. So you're not going to be sort of your house and all the other things that you own are not going to come into the equation if a client turned really nasty and wanted to sue you for things. So you do have you run more of a liability trading through as a sole trader. I mean, in reality, if you've got professional indemnity insurance, if you're practicing within your own field.
I mean, it's a thing that kids can get.
Yeah. So it's
yeah. Put it on and
it's a bit of noise on the
I get
system.
Yes, Amanda?
I get it, but usually something triggers this little lady, so that's why I was wondering, like, what.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
it's just a general thing.
If Amanda, you're coming through on your phone.
I'm good for now.
Can you mute, please?
We are watered and fed.
We may be able to.
Okay, actually, I'd like proper
mute
feedback.
external.
Can you mute her? Great.
Oh, that's it. Got it. Perfect. That's great. Yeah. So yeah, I think the key thing is you can set up very quickly. With a limited company, you first of all register a company, then you've got to register a bank account, and it's a bit of a longer process and more expensive. But I think it's worth it in the long run. I mean, it depends very much on how much money you're putting through. If your turnover is going to be very small, you might feel, okay, it's just worth taking the risk. If your turnover is significant, I would say, the accountancy costs are not that much. It's generally about £1,000 a year or so, which in the grand scheme of things, it's another £1,000 a year, but it's not massive.
If you're accountant,
if you've got one cheaper, we need to talk.
No, mine's much more expensive than that. Okay, well, thanks for that. I think so. I think it'd be good now to move on to that. So our second talk of the day is from Kerry Lou, who's has also set up her own business, but for a very different set of reasons. And I think you'll see from her talk how this has affected the decisions that she's had to make in setting it up. So, Kerry, would you like to?
So hi everyone. I'm not as prepared as Martin because I thought it's just easier, just like a chit chat kind of situation. So I didn't like make slide like Martin does. But my background is after I graduated from university as an undergrad, I working in NHS for about 10 years. And then afterward, I working in a consultancy company for about 3 years, but they providing service back to NHS and the pharmaceutical company. So in that 13 years of time, because I want to have some extra money and things like that, I also do, you guys call it side hustle, but it's similar to what we call like sole trader as well. So basically, I kind of taking part-time job outside my contract. But I would say that when you do it like this, double check your permanent contract to see whether A, can you do the part-time job or offside job that in the same industry or a direct competitor or things like that. So you need to double check that, because some company will say, oh, it's okay as long as you're not doing that in your work hours, but some of them is like definite no. So just make sure that you double check that. So for example, like I do tutoring, just normal tutoring for GCSE student. Normally the company is okay with that. But if you're talking about like, I'm working at NHS, but I'm working for a consultancy company that who do research for NHS, that may be a no. So double check the contract before you agree on anything. So that is how very beginning, how I started. So after 13 years in the like normal permanent job kind of situation, you can see midlife crisis coming in, because you kind of like at that moment of time, you like, I don't want to promote. I don't want a promotion anymore, and I want what I want in life, what I do want to do with myself and my family, because at the end of the day, everyone got their own responsibility financially or family commitment. So like Martin, that I got similar to financial commitment to my family. So I thought, is something working as a sole trader or company director or anything like that, which one would be more suitable for me? Or should I just still stay in the permanent contract that? So basically, I got 6 months to test the water. So what happened was, I got a client that, and when I work in a consultancy company, he knew I would like to test the water, and he at that moment of time, he got a contract for 6 months to saying that, what about doing that during the time that you think about it, you got some contract and money coming in. So in that 6 months, what I did is, one, talking to different people, including a lawyer, accountant, tax advisor, to basically present the cases like, well, I'm doing this now. If I want to keep going what I'm doing, what is the best way of moving forward? So normally people like that is word of mouth that I got recommend from the lawyer or tax advisor or accountant. And normally in the industry call, they do not charge you anything. So they will say to you that, that is an advisory. You can only take it advisory. They're not legally saying that I give you advice to that, but it's just like, well, if you're doing like that from their personal perspective, you can do it ABCD way, but you are the one that will need to take responsible whatever they say. And also like everyone, you need to do the due diligence that which one is most suitable for you. And the other thing I think talking to different people will be good is sometimes they come up with a question that you never think about it. So for example, if you're working with your sole trader or limited company, the way that you're doing pension will be different. So that is another thing that you need to bear in mind, like what kind of thing that you want to do as well. So for set up the company itself, it only takes me 4 hours to do that. So what I mean by that is go to a company house to register your company, find an accountant that will helping you on the way and things like that. And when I was sole trader, I only use my accountant every once a year. Is when I'm doing my self-assessment moment, because everything else I got paid is quite easy. Let's say a vanilla case for me to have an accountant is more about like, have I done something wrong? Have I missing anything that I didn't know? So that is why you can say that you have an accountant to send check that before I submit to the HMRC. But after the decision, after that 6 months that I worked with that client, I thought actually, if I want to do more charity work using my income with everything, being a limited company is more suitable for me. So that is why that I have that accountant. I pay monthly fee for him to sort out everything that I do, including calculate VAT. Because from what I know is like if your company earn more than £85,000 a year, you need to register as a VAT person. But before that, maybe a grey area. But that again, double check with the people that who know more than I do. So that is what happened. And for that reason, I would say that as a limited company, you are not you anymore. So what I mean like that is being a permanent staff, I just need to be a data scientist. I need to report to my line manager. Whatever he say goes. And also sometimes you have a fight with him. If when you don't have an agreement, you can go up a level to saying that, hey, director, I have an agreement with my line manager. I don't agree with that. Someone will help you. But being a limited or sole trader, I do not have that kind of protection. So for example, one of the first thing is marketing. Martin said about that marketing before. How you want to do marketing is up to you, really. But if you are people that is very introvert, maybe something that is not you, but you need to learn how to do it. Like you need to talk to a stranger, you need to go to conference, you need to present your idea within 30 seconds to get the idea. Is this something that you want to do? Of course, when you have a company, you can say that I outsource that to other people, which it will be more money or more strength. But it's like I said, about you as a person, how you want to do that. That no one way of doing one thing is multiple way. And also right now is like having a LinkedIn. This is quite good from a marketing perspective, because a lot of things that you want to talk about commercial or money, people know that you coming in as a business perspective rather than anything else. So that is one thing. For me, being a limited company is difficult is how you have the client coming to you, because you're you or mini group. How can you fight with like big group like consultancy company like PwC and things like that? So I would say that networking with people that the market is very important, because sometimes they may want something that better than they do, far than a big consultancy company like PwC. So you can present your problem and question to the right people. So that is something that I think is valuable. But from my perspective, like if I having a problem with HR issue, so for example, I got one of the issue with sexual harassment during the time that I worked there. Like I work with a client and then I have a problem. I don't have a HR to help me to solve out that problem, but I need to rely on also, like I need to employ or have advice from my lawyer or legal government, DEI and things like that to see whether they can help me or not. So that is another thing that being negative about it, but at the same time, you got more control about the contract that you want to do. The other thing that I personally love and hate is drafting the contract. So when, like Martin said, that every time that you agree with something, you need to be able to put it in black and white. Sometimes when I say contract, don't need to be like full on, like 200 pages long and then with like course. It's not like that. But when you need to learn is like how to pinpoint like what you agree to do, the period that you agree to do, and also how to define the money. That is something that I find it sometimes quite difficult, but it's challenging itself. Like you say that when you work in a permanent job And when your line manager said to you, like, this is a project, how long it take you to do? You sometimes will say that, oh, it take me 2 weeks to do that. But the thing is, when you think about that 2 weeks, it's not just your time who work in that 2 weeks, but at the same time, like the extra cost, like, do I need to have outsourced some of the tasks to other people? Do I need to buy the license to the toolkit that I'm using? Do I need to talk to other people to sign up before we do that? So that is another layer of it that I would say that you need to learn and stuff. But it's fascinating how many people doing it different way. I enjoy the moment of it. Last but not least, I would say that if you don't know anything, there is always someone that you can talk to add the legal advice before you make the decision. Some of them, government department do have a free and introductory course, and anything that you want to step forward. I would say that if you're not 100% sure, asking for people to help, and also a network of people like what we're doing in here, and people that that about being independent, being a solo trader, I think is really important, because sometimes that you may be struggling on something you don't know, then you can talk to someone about it. Last but not least, I would say that another thing I learned during this 6 years that I'm in the industry, the playground, let's put it this way, and we can always work together with other people as well. So what I mean is, like, we can back a government project together with different independent companies together to do it. So it's not just one way of getting work, but it's like you need to be more creative on how you're getting people and how you draft the work itself. So another thing I would say is, if you don't mind being more open-minded, if someone, normally people employ an independent contractor like us, will be like, they have not 100% sure what they want, but they want to test the water, they want to do a proof of concept. So I think for a person like us, we need to be more forward thinking. What can we do based on the problem that we got? So yeah, I think I open the floor to everyone who want to ask the question, but that is what I got so far. And for me, another thing I want to say is, like, I'm really grateful that for the 6 years that have this company, I'm able to do charity work using the company that I got. So I'm not talking about donating money, but about that is, I got a data volunteer team that we take pro bono work with charity and vulnerable people, and also university. So for me, it's just giving back to community from the way that I want it as well. So here, everything. Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kerry. Does anybody have any questions for Kerry? Oh, there's a question from Miguel. What was the most surprising or unexpected issue that you faced? Oh, you're on mute still? I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Right. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, a lot of discrimination that I face that I cannot deal with. So that is most surprising thing, because being a girl, and I look quite young for my age as well, because I got the Asian gene, if that makes sense. So sometimes I find it really difficult that people would take me seriously. And also, when I said sexual harassment for the last 6 years, it happened 7 times. And some of them go to the court as well. But for me, I would just like, how can we as a woman in the business, how can I protect myself? That is very difficult. And I got asked, sometime I got asked in the meeting that if I'm married or not as well. So that is another thing that is the barrier that I got. But if you ask me from a limited company, I would say that when the government change, like for example, like the budgeting structure change and financial year change, is the moment that affect us the most, because if they don't have the money, the first thing they cut is all the external contract. So that is not something that you can do or help, but that is something that I won't say unexpected, but expected, if that makes sense. But it's like, it's really on the news, and for me, for working in NHS, is every time when the PM change, is the structure change as well. So I mean, you heard about that more. So that is another thing I would say. I hope I answer your question.
Okay. Right, thanks. I think we've got a comment from Megan in the chat as well about that. So. Yeah, I mean, I must say it's not something I would have expected, but I suppose the thing is, you know, if you're on your own, you know, people see you as somebody who can be pressurized, I guess.
Yeah. So I have one actually even this year, last 9 months, 2025, I got asked is, oh, if you're doing the project with us, how can you look after your family? Got
Yeah.
asked, but the thing is that that is not even the normal question that HR should ask you for that. It can't ask you, but the thing is, I cannot say, hey, you crossed the line. So that is another thing I need to, I think from a group perspective is how to protect women in the workplace, because in the big commercial company, they got thing there. But in a group like this, I would say that will be good to have a pathway for me to, you know, to be able to look after me. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I must say, I mean, it's one of the things I must say in my experience of working for myself for over quite a long time is that you shouldn't expect it to be fair. Yeah, if you're working in a company, fair enough. You know, there's a certain expectation of fairness, you know, and you can complain to people, like Harry said, if it's not fair. But if you're outside and you have a personality clash, or somebody decides that they can get ahead by rubbishing your work, or whatever it is, personalities are just, yeah, you just got to just roll with it, really. I mean, that's one of the reasons I think why one of the most important things Martin said was this: the thing you got to think about is not just, I mean, certainly what I had the same experience as both Carrie and Martin, that when I started, there was a small project and a company I was working for at the time went bust, and somebody came to me and said, can you do the work? So for the first 6 months I had work, but how you get beyond that, because in the end, the most important thing, in my experience, is getting the work. Pretty much everything else is subsidiary to getting the work if you're working for yourself. That's the real challenge, is getting the work. If you can get the work, you'll make money, because, you know, in the end, it's you and a computer. You're going to make money. It's not like you can lose money on oil futures or something like that. That's the way it's going to happen. But it's very easy not to get the work. And I've personally found that most of the time a consultant has a shelf life, usually about 5 or 7 years, something like that. You can keep the same people you go back to, they keep giving you more work, and then something happens. Either it could be a change in the way the organization works or whatever it is, and suddenly you're on the shelf and they're not interested in you anymore, and you will have to have something set up for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. I don't know whether other people have had the same kind of experience, but
And the other thing I want to echo to unexpected is, so I have a few clients, like monthly payment, for example, like every single month is like checkpoint, and you pay. Some of them refuse to pay the last month, and then you take a year to chasing them. But the thing is, it's not a type of job that, I don't know Martin or John, but like for me, if you're permanent staff, you got a payroll to chasing, you know, go down to the T to get the money back. But
yeah.
I take like one of them, I take like 2.5 years just take the money back. If you ask me, is it that much? The final payment may be only like £2,000, but in a big scale of it, £2,000 is not that much.
No.
And it's just another thing that I find it, like, as an independent, how you protect yourself to being paid. That is another thing that I learned the hard way.
Yeah, I mean, I must say, I've worked with some. Actually, the government, the good thing about the government is they're a slow payer, but they're a reliable payer. The worst experience I've ever had was with Kantar, and oh boy, they were not fun. Quite a lot of they seem to get quite a lot of emails lost in, you know, quite a lot of things got lost in the post for various reasons before finally we got ourselves paid. And they had, you know, and these people all sign up to the payments code, and they'll all tell you that they get it done really quickly, but oh no, they don't. And if you actually look at their terms, they actually physically, it would be a statistical improbability that they successfully stayed underneath within the terms of the payments code. But like I say, it's not fair, and in the end, particularly as a small company, you've got to think: do you go to law or not? because it is an expensive and stressful business. I don't know, Martin's had a bit of experience.
Martin, got any unexpected thing that you experienced during the time that you've been?
Yeah,
Sorry?
yeah. Sorry, Carrie, didn't quite catch that.
So what about you? Have you got any unexpected experience that you can share with the group?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, I'd agree with John. I think that there are people who are good, better payers. I mean, like the government, slow, but they do pay in the end. And there are those who don't, and they hide behind all sorts of reasons of, oh, this isn't compliant with that, or we haven't got this, we haven't got that, or whatever. And I think as, I mean, you've got two strategies. One is price, assuming you're not going to get the end payment. It's not a very good one in this day and age. It's very hard to make any money from 80% or something of the true bill, bearing in mind how much pressure there is on money in the system at the moment. I think the other way is you've got to be prepared to go to court. And actually, it's not as bad as it seems. I've done it a few times. In the end, sometimes the threat of court action can be enough. Often it isn't, strangely. It is amazing how people are prepared to stand in court and defend all sorts of old rubbish. My last experience in court was hilariously funny. You could write a book about it. I mean, they even sent a barrister to the small claims court for not very much money, realistically. And the judge hated him. The judge absolutely hated him. It's like, oh, Professor Parr, sit down. Oh, you must be counsel for the other side. You better sit down too. And like every comment, the judge was, well, you're not saying anything. This is my court. I'm writing things. And I was like, right, Professor Parr, please come and have a chat. It's so funny. Yeah, so I obviously won the case, and then eventually got payment, but eventually. But yeah, it's a slow process. But I think in the end, you just have to be prepared to do it. It's pretty much a whole day written off, and you've got all the preparations for that beforehand. But I think once people know that you're serious, that you are actually going to, it's not just an idle threat that I will take legal action if you don't. It's an actually, yeah, if you don't do this by whenever, then I'm coming after you. And you do get your money. I mean, it's a right palaver. But I would say if you can relax a bit and try to enjoy it, it's one of the things in life that you have no choice but to go through it. But if you can sort of see it as part of the scenery of life, it's not stressful because in the end you're in a much better position. You probably will get your money if you're owed it, and the only way you won't is on some technicality. And then if you don't get your money, well, at least you know what the technicality was and you know what to do with the next contract. So I would say, just go for it. Just go. And the small claims process is relatively straightforward. If it's a claim of anything up to 10,000, you can do that through the small route, and it's relatively inexpensive to do. You will recover your costs in the end of doing it. So yeah, it's a right nose, but it's about the only way of doing it. And I think also try and steer yourself towards clients who have a vested interest in you, keeping you on side. I mean, if you're doing things for a long-standing client, it's very unlikely they're not going to pay the bill, because all you have to say is, hey, I didn't get paid last month, and that's fine. It all goes through and it's done. So yeah, if you've got the kind of client who needs to keep you on side, I think it's fine. I totally agree with John. There is no fairness. That people couldn't care less. They basically want to pay the minimum bill, and if that involves not paying you, that's just fine by them. That's,
Yeah. I think the worst experience I had was at one point at which I was working through an intermediary, and they had and somebody else came along with a better offer for being an intermediary, but there was like a non-compete clause.
Yeah.
And I was actually advised by that this was what they call a covenant and restraint of trade, which is something that you're not allowed. I mean, in the common law, it's not allowed. You're not allowed covenant and restraint of trade. But in the end, I didn't want to go to law. So in the end, I worked for these people for a little bit longer. But in my negotiation with these people, I basically ensured that they never made any more money out of me.
Yeah, that's all you can do, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it is. There's all sorts of toing and froing, and in the end, I think you just got to position yourself in the best place you possibly can, and it's that's life. And I think the key thing is not to take it personally. I think there's an awful lot of huffing and puffing when things get a bit strained, but in the end, try and keep the relationships as positive as you possibly can. And the fact that I sued the heck out of someone a little while back, it doesn't stop me working for them again. But I tell you what, we're going to be really, really crystal clear about how I'm getting paid.
And the one good thing about working for yourself is that if you're in an organisation, if you get into some poisonous political bun fight with your manager, or your manager does all the various things that happen in big organisations, you're pretty much stuck with it unless you make a major decision. Whereas if you're a contractor, if you don't like them, don't work with them again.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
Yeah, you can be gone in
to
no
add
time.
on to that, don't know why those, if you go back as a contractor, people around you treat you a little bit nicer because they know that you're not the direct competitor anymore.
No.
You don't chase for the same promotion, same thing. So everyone seems to be like more gentle with people. But like you said, it shouldn't be like that. You should be treating people all equal or fair and everything. But sometimes, but like John said, I love being working for myself because you can do more things that's suitable for your life. But again, it's about the personality and everything. If you are the person that really do not want to do like contract chasing thing, all the thing that extra than that, I would say that just think harder what kind of thing that you can do, cannot do.
Excellent.
Gives you lots of flexibility. I think one thing I would just say is bear in mind also about what you're prepared to sort of be around in terms of behaviours. I mean, I'm pretty robust about, I'm not going to be involved in any behaviour that's detrimental to somebody else in any way, shape, or form, etc. I've got a pretty good set of values that I uphold with everything I do. Not everybody around you shares those, and in a lot of ways, if you limited yourself to only doing business with people who shared those values, you'd be a little bit a bit limited for business. So there's a sort of interesting thing. I mean, I worked with one organisation where there was one particular director who did not share those values in any way, shape, or form, and so I had a bit of soul searching. I mean, I almost resigned. I was really close to just saying, well, that's it, I'm not being part of this. But in the end, what I had to do was just I worked with them for a little bit longer while we ramped down the work program, and I just had nothing to do with them. I wouldn't have anything to do with that particular director at all under any circumstances, because what was going on was fundamentally not fair. And I said that to the MD. I said, there's no way. I will honour this contract, but I will not in any way, shape, or form work with anybody who doesn't share my values. And that's kind of where we agreed to leave it. And so I think there's sometimes those sort of, if you're in an organisation, you have a bit more control over what goes on. You've got a route to complain about things if they're not they're not fair and reasonable. Outside, you've got to make a decision of do you stay or do you go, and sometimes it's not as clear cut as you'd like it to be. You sometimes have to stay a little bit and just bound what's going on and make sure you're not in any way, shape, or form not even involved, but not copied in, not in any way, shape, or form in contact with people sometimes who don't share your value set. So it's worth thinking about that as well.
Yeah. Excellent. And I think we've got a few comments from Tim in the chat about his experience of being a sole trader. And I don't you want to say anything, Tim, or? Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. I just think I've been a sole trader now for about a year after being given the opportunity by a large consultancy to take some time out with a bit of money, if you see what I mean. And I've just found I'm going back to the same clients, and the biggest barrier is always, how do we contract you? Because they tend to have frameworks set up with very large consultancies. I'm doing mostly public sector work, so they have to work through very carefully competitive contracts. They tend to have frameworks in place. If you're not on the framework, they find it difficult. But once you're in actually with a relationship, and they know what you're doing, they know they are getting fantastic value for money compared to what the large consultancy did. And it makes you wonder about why so much public sector work is set up around large consultancies. Because I can charge a lower rate and earn a lot more per hour. And actually they get my time focusing on what I can see they really need. I don't at any point have a responsibility for seeing if I can find somebody else some busy work, which you always to some extent do when you work in a large consultancy. You know, I'm not dissing those people. I spent 20 happy years in that sort of environment, and it has its place, but I think there's perhaps too much of it. I'm still listening to this, puzzling over at what point I would stop being a sole trader and decide to actually have a company, though, and which I'm wondering whether I'm missing out, because I cannot see. I've looked at it a few times and I cannot see the point unless I started to earn.
I mean, I've just moved. I've just started doing stuff as a sole trader, and I'm closing my company down. And a lot of that is actually IR35, but some of it's also because you need a certain minimum. In my view, you need a certain minimum amount of money to justify the limited company approach.
Yeah. So what difference does the IR35 make on that? Is because you're working already and under IR35. So
it's essentially what they're saying is that if you're a sole trader, they don't care, because in the end, the revenue still get the national insurance from you.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're a limited company, the revenue hate individuals working as limited companies. They just hate it because they think they're not getting any national insurance out of it. It's as simple as that, really. And
yeah, okay.
Because they hate you, they've written a whole set of rules to say, oh, no, you're not really working for yourself. I mean, my attitude is, well, would you like to come and do what I'm doing then? See how you get on having to find somebody new to pay you each month.
Yeah. So once you're shifted into IR35, that benefit starts.
It's on a contract by contract basis. So you can have one contract that's within, another contract that's without. That's the technical way it works. But yeah, if you're a sole trader, you won't be troubled by it, because as I say, they don't.
I've had some clients have had to put me through things like the match tech and people who take a percentage because I'm not a firm. Yeah. But my feeling is that the tax aspect, they might take a 5% premium, but which basically costs the client more. But the tax thing would come out in the wash on that anyway.
Yeah, these days it does pretty much. I don't think there's that much difference between the two approaches in terms of tax, practically speaking. The main thing, though, of course, the revenue you lose on the employer's national insurance. That's the big thing they lose. The thing that is, if you're an employee, you never know about is that vast amounts of money your company is handing over as employers NI, and you never see that, but it's there. And it's it has got more difficult. Although, of course, one thing is that a lot of this was originally because they wanted to force people into limited companies because they were frightened of the unlimited liability for sole traders. Anyhow, I think we have come now to pretty much the end of our allotted hour. So I would like to thank our speakers very much for their contributions on this. So thank you, Martin. Thank you, Carrie, and thank you, Tim. And I've declared this session closed. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks, John. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.